what I want to show is the new version of Smalltalk. It's called the Vista Smalltalk. It's actually online, so you can go to vistasmalltalk.com, take a look at it. There's lots of stuff which is not complete, but this is a Smalltalk that runs in the browser, like it's 100% in the browser. Just a minute, I probably should show it online here. Just a sec. Share screen. Okay. So can you see that now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we'll take a look at the class browser first. And it's your regular Smalltalk. It was modeled initially after Squeak. Like, it's not intended to be as complete as a Quiz or Faro, but it is intended to run in any browser, and it's also intended to run on mobile devices. So we can take a look at okay, some of the things here. We'll take a look at a window. I have, for instance, the class. Let me see, a games window, method inspector, text window, transcript window, and so on. Let's just try, like I haven't played with this for a bit, so I'm going to be a bit slow. Okay, the workbench. Workbench is the same as a workspace in your Faro or whatever. So if I were to say transcript, yeah. Okay, so if I were to say, I haven't implemented 1, 2, whatever, but I can do it using a while. Oh.
You have to print X, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, but you know, I was looking at that thinking I don't understand that.
It's why you should. It's why you should. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
So it's printing out that. If I take anything like your standard things like you know, what is the class of 1, 2, 3? It'll show you that the class is an integer. Just I'll clear the output here. So there's your integer. If it's a string, it'll show a string 1, 2, 3, and so on and so on. Some of the I'm trying to remember what I did because I haven't played with this particular version for about a month now. I'll talk about why in a minute. Okay, the tic-tac window. I think I can probably do that. Yeah, tic-tac window. Look at the class. It probably just says tic-tac windows. Probably just say open. Let's try the tic-tac window. Okay, so that sets up a tic-tac window so we can play tic-tac-toe. And this is generated by the Smalltalk code. You know, I set up the window and responding to the clicks on the squares and so on. That's all done at the Smalltalk level. I'll talk about the different levels in a minute. So you can look at the code for this. There's the tic-tac window. You can look at some of the Okay, super async initialize, add the buttons. There's your button for play, reset, switch, and so on. The count determine, okay, on play, default click handler, on switch, that's switching the player and so on. As I said, I haven't looked at it for a while, so I'm going to be kind of slow. And it's part of a game window, so you can make all kinds of different games like checkers and so on, checkers, chess, and so on, using the same window. And the games window doesn't do a whole lot. Window does quite a bit of stuff. Like if I were to make just a basic window, if I were to say just make me a window without any specification, it would just open up a window. So if I want to make a specific kind of window, I hope I don't screw it up because I haven't tried it in a long time. Okay, that's a games window. The class, there's a console. Okay, a console window. Console window. If I open a console window, okay, so there's a console window, which is basically it's basically just a workspace. But the console window, you can see how it was generated here. The console window, there's an editor panel. It initializes here okay, so on eval, what the console window is going to do is going to get the text panel, create compile the method that was in the text panel. If it's a compiled method, then it's going to evaluate it, and it's going to evaluate it to the text panel. Very simple stuff so far. Here's the parser, parse to AST and so on, Smalltalk parser. It puts out an AST, and then the AST what happens? We go through the walker, and it gets compiled to a compiled method. Okay, the whole point of running things in the browser is you can distribute them, either for education or for games. And the thing that inspired me on this was if you look at Scratch, which was initially it was originally done in Squeak Smalltalk. And if you go to the Scratch website, which is MIT, and you look at the statistics on that, they have something like 100 million active users, or 100 million people that have registered on Scratch. And Scratch was originally a Smalltalk application. So I said, like, Smalltalk has not been very popular for many years now. And I think the reason is that it's not a question of the language, it's a question of the ability to distribute it to people. And yeah, so here's what Squeak, or this is Scratch, and this was originally a Smalltalk application. So they've had 135 million projects shared, 632 million page views. This is the last month, 632 million page views last month, 93 million visitors, 32 million unique visitors. So I think that Smalltalk could be enormously popular if a version comes out which can run in the browsers. And I put something up at the end of last year in one of these groups on Reddit where people are learning to code. And the response I got back was, I think 60% of them said it doesn't run in my mobile device. So I put up something like this, and people said, well, that looks great, but it doesn't run in my cell phone. And a few people said it didn't run in Firefox. So I rewrote the whole version and made sure, if you go to Vista Smalltalk and you go on a mobile device, it'll show you something else called Vista Python. I have it. I have the URLs mixed up somehow. But yeah, this should be running in a mobile device as well. I mean, by mobile device, I mean your average telephone. And if you look at the, okay, we can look at the download size over here. And I'm going to put up, this is the Google's developer tools. And I'm going to just go to network and we're going to do a reload. Okay, so I'm just going to clear the browser and we'll do a reload so that over here we can see what's being loaded. Okay, so you see Ace.js, that's the editor. That's the an editor takes. I'm going to make this a bit bigger so we can see the size of things. We can see the size, or I can put just the JS. Okay, so the mobile redirect, that's a little JavaScript routine that when you connect to the application, it looks at what device you're using. And if you're using a mobile device, it directs you to the mobile version. If you're using a full browser, it keeps you on the full browser. The Vista No Cache JS, see sources. I'm trying to look at where we're getting to see a size of things. Okay, because here it's saying from the memory cache. So what I'm going to do here is just make sure it dumps the cache. Did I get that open right? Okay, empty cache and reload. So there it'll force it to reload from the server. Okay, so here we say the mobile redirect is only 1.8 kilobytes. Okay. This is where all of the application code is in this thing here, and that yeah, I've lost. It's only about 600K, I think. What am I missing here? Console. Go to network. Anyway, it always works when I'm doing it. When I'm trying to demo, it doesn't work. Okay, so the JavaScript, the bulk of the JavaScript is in this thing called it's a huge name. It's generated. This is all generated from a Java source code. I'm going to talk about that. The Firefox or the Firebase, all of these things I'm not using anymore because I've switched to I was using a NoSQL database, and now I'm using a Postgres SQL database because I found the NoSQL was harder to manage. So all of these things are going to disappear. The Vista No Cache JS is just a little loader program. This is the biggie right here. That's where all your JavaScript ends up. And I'm trying to get the size of it. Not sure why it doesn't say.
Are you showing the browser? Sorry for interrupting. Because we only see the transcript at the moment. Maybe you have a second monitor.
Oh, I see. Okay, I'm sorry. It's in a second window. Sure, I'm not quite sure how to do that. Okay, just have to believe me. If you go to the vistasmalltalk.com and you open up the Google tools, you'll be able to see all what's downloaded. So basically, it downloads a very small program to decide whether it's a mobile application or not, and then it loads a different source. Anyway, now I'm going to get into how this thing was built. Okay, the tools that I'm using for this, as I said, the entire thing is built originally in Java, and the Java, I use a tool from Google called the Google Web Toolkit. Google Web Toolkit is what Google used to use to build their Gmail and stuff like that. They've now changed that to a different product called J2CL. And J2, if you're using any Google application like Google Sheets or Google, what else would Google Mail and so on, probably Google Maps, they're all built in Java originally, and then Google translates that into JavaScript. They don't, apparently, as from what I can see, they don't write a lot of their most productive tools directly in JavaScript. You know, they've had their own language called Dart. They tried that and various other things, but they write, I know that they write Gmail and 2 or 3 others at least in Java, and then they run it through this. They don't use GWT anymore. As I said, they changed the name to J2CL, which is Java to CL is for Clojure. Clojure is their product, again, written in Java, which compresses JavaScript down to the absolute minimum that it can run. So I'm using the same tool as what Google uses. And all of the widgets that you see here, you know, Windows and, oh, let's see, I've got libraries, tutorials. I don't have any tutorials. Libraries, just a second. Shared, okay, shared projects. No, there's nothing. Not quite sure what I was doing there. No, nothing. As I said, it's sort of in disorder right now. Anyway, all of the, that's interesting. Have I lost my connection to the database? I'm not sure. Okay, object. Yeah, all of these widgets, you know, for trees and for tabs and all that kind of stuff that you need in Smalltalk, they're all written in Java. And the Google Web Toolkit doesn't contain a lot of things like Windows. It doesn't contain a lot of the things I'm using. It doesn't contain. So I had to write my own widget set in Java, and that took quite a while. That was finished at the end of last year. The whole architecture of this thing is that there's a scheduler. The scheduler, again, is written in Java. And the scheduler, I'm going to try to give a little demo here to show you how the scheduler works. So what I'll do here is I'll just set up something like I did before. And we'll make it, you know, a little longer, so we'll run a little longer. Yeah. I can run this to the transcript, but I obviously I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, so there you have it running, and it's going to count up to 1,000. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to open another window, another workspace. I'm going to do the same thing. And we'll put the same thing in there. And I'll open another one. So another workspace. And I'm going to run them all at the same time. So we're going to run this guy. We'll start this guy. And we're going to start this guy. So what you're going to see over here is they're being interleaved. You have 3 processes running now. They're all going to the transcript. Normally I'd put them out to the right panel, but I forget how to do that. So we have 3 processes running here. And the scheduler can be interrupted. Like you can say, stop this process, cancel this project, restart the process, set it to a different priority, and so on. So when you have new people that are using this kind of application or this kind of environment, one thing that you want to be able to do is to be able to catch their errors and stop it. Like one thing that you know, students that I found do is they set up an infinite loop and then they can't get out of it. So this thing, it can be interrupted at any time. We have one of them finished over here. Actually, several of them probably finished. So things can be set to high priority, low priority. Things can be interrupted. Things can be restarted. And one of the things, and again, I forget how to do it, we can step through the code. So it's like the debugger that you have in Pharo and Quiz and so on. So you can step through the code. Now, I haven't got a full debugger in yet, but I've been able to step through the code one step at a time, or run stepping so that it steps through and you watch the output. So all those things are working, and there are lots of reasons why a lot of things have been added in and taken out and so on. But the goal is, I'd like to do maybe a full presentation in September. The goal is to have a Smalltalk environment which is reasonably complete, that can run in any browser, including Firefox or any of the browsers out there, and run on mobile devices. Now, when you're running it on a mobile device, you're not going to have Windows. Those things, Windows don't work on mobile devices. They're just too small. So I have a different interface for mobile devices. It looks like your standard type of mobile application where you're flipping things in and out and so on. But you could, on a mobile device, you probably wouldn't do development. On a mobile device, you'd probably just do applications. So the application would be a game, or the application would be access a database or something like that, running on a mobile phone. When I do a save, in my class browser, if I open the class browser, and again, I shouldn't try to demo it because it probably doesn't work as I remember it. But when I do a save down here, saving, if I make a change, it saves, it writes out the image, and the image is normally about, I was going to say it's less than a megabyte. It's probably about 200 or 300K for the image that I have here. I'd have to look at it again. When you do a save, it saves that to the PostgreSQL database. So if say I was giving a class for something and I wanted to make a change, I can just make the change in my version, do a save, and as soon as the students reload, they have the new version. Like there's no distribution. You don't have to distribute this to anybody. They run it in their browser, and if somebody makes a change, they'll see it instantly. Whoever reloads the application, they'll reload the image and they'll get the new version. So that's sort of a brief overview. But okay, so what I've been doing in the past month, as I said, I haven't looked at it for this particular thing for the past month or so. Well, two things. One of which is I've been getting a better mobile user interface. There is a mobile interface for this, but it's not very good. So I have a much better mobile interface in the works. It's almost done. That, and I did a series of tools which can read and write chunk format from either Quiz or Faro. So you can write a whole bunch of code in Faro. You get all your refactoring tools. You get all your nice trace tools and all that kind of stuff, either Faro or Quiz. You can export classes, not any class, but you can export certain classes that are run here in a chunk format. The tools I built can read in the chunk format and write out the image. The image format I use, by the way, is JSON. I don't use your standard sort of squeak binary image format. I use JSON, which is probably, I may at some point in the future make it a better image format, because JSON takes up a lot of space. So I might change that to some sort of a binary format in the future. Now, the interesting thing about the tools I've been developing, I didn't develop them in Java. I developed them in Ruby. So I have a bunch of tools that are built in Ruby, and originally they were designed to run on the command line. But since I had a parser, I had to build a parser for parsing out the Smalltalk code and so on. So I built a scanner or a lexer and a parser. And then I said, well, why not just put in the VM as well in Ruby? So I have a Ruby version running as well. It doesn't run nearly as, again, it's a very early prototype. This has only been running for about, I think, 3 weeks now. I started the whole Ruby project about 3 weeks ago. So here's some code running. Again, this is on my local machine. And all of the code for this is written in Ruby. I'll explain that a little further. So I can take something like, if I do here's a block, so I can say, what is this? It's a block. If I say, what's your value? It'll give me the value and so on. And I have here's the class browser and so on. And a lot of these methods don't work, because what I did with these methods was I took them originally from GNU Smalltalk, because GNU Smalltalk, it's hard to get a whole bunch of classes out of either Faro or Quiz, because mixed in all of that code are all of your GUI references. So it's hard to get a nice clean set of classes without references to GUI. And the only Smalltalk I know how to do that with is GNU. And GNU has a lot of stuff in there I don't need, but it doesn't have any reference to a UI. So that was what I needed. I have my own UI. So all of these classes originally came from that's method. Okay, subclass responsibility, collect classes. So let me see some of the other ones. Create list. You know, these are things that I just imported. I took the what do you call it? The GNU block, or not block format, chunk format. I took the whole directory of GNU Smalltalk, ran it through my tools, and imported all the classes. So that's basically what you're seeing here. I've been cleaning them out, you know, getting rid of some, adding some in, and so on. So that's what I've been doing for the past month, is sort of making my own version of classes, which were originally from GNU. And you know, here it just says there's a primitive here called basic new, and I said it didn't work at that time, so I just said meta class basic new just returns the value. So a lot of these things are just proxies, you know, they're just placeholders. And the way I do things in a lot of this stuff is we take, for instance, add subclass, well, any of these things, basic new, class hierarchy and so on, you see that they're primitives. So these primitives, they issue a call into either the Java code or into the Ruby code.
Something new.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the reason I use Java, rather than writing directly in JavaScript is because of the quality of the development tools. You know, in Java, it's very hard to refactor things, or JavaScript is very hard to refactor things. When you're in Java, you have really tremendously good tools, especially from JetBrains, that you can do your Java refactoring. So I find that when I'm building things like this, I do a lot of refactoring. You know, things work, things don't work. You take things in, take things out, put things in, and so on. Ruby doesn't refactor nearly as well, but Ruby has some advantages over Java in implementing a VM for Smalltalk. One of them is that you can run it on the server, and the server that this is running from, by the way, is Ruby on Rails, and I can run my Smalltalk code on the server in Ruby on Rails. Another thing is that Ruby, there are two products. One is called, two projects. One is called JRuby, and JRuby is a version of Ruby that runs on the JVM, runs on the Java virtual machine. The other one is called it's called Opal Ruby. Opal Ruby is a Ruby to JavaScript compiler. So the code that this is running within the browser is actually generated from Ruby code into JavaScript. So it's something like the Google project where they're taking from Java and going into JavaScript. So another thing that Ruby gives me that Java doesn't, Java, when I convert Java into JavaScript, I don't get reflection. So I can't sort of ask a particular class, what are your methods? I have to write all that stuff myself to do the reflection. In Ruby, I can say, here's a string, how many methods do you know? And it'll give me a list of 30 or 40 methods that were Ruby methods originally that I can now call simply by sending a message to them from Smalltalk. So it's going to give me more flexibility on things like strings and collections and so on in the JavaScript. At the same time, I'm going to be able to run the Smalltalk code on the server, so that you could have, and Ruby on Rails, of course, is used in something like 2 million websites use Ruby on Rails for running the server. So I can run Smalltalk on the server with some really good object relational management capabilities. So that's sort of an overview. I guess it's a lot to absorb in 10 minutes, but the project goes back about 20 years, by the way, so it's nothing new. It's not a new concept. The name of Vista Smalltalk, I originally wrote this to run it in Vista, Microsoft Vista, using the .NET runtime. And I remember back when that came out, and it was Dolphin Smalltalk and so on. People were trying to run things on the Microsoft, what do they call it? It's not the their .NET virtual machine anyway, and nobody could do it. And I did it by simply writing everything in C# instead of writing it in C. And then, but I found that when I did desktop applications with it, what I'm running up against is that Microsoft has a lot of free tools that are really good. So nobody's interested in a Smalltalk that builds a desktop application in .NET because Microsoft has a bunch of free tools. So then I started looking at browsers and saying, by the way, there are not very many good tools for building user interfaces in JavaScript. I mean, you hear about React and all these sort of things, but they can't do this kind of interface. They're terrible. Any questions?
We got some questions on the chat, and so someone's really commented on the name, but a few people are saying I can't get anything to appear on vistasmalltalk.com. Class browser is empty, register does not accept. Would be fine to try out. And someone else is also reporting the same issue.
Sorry, I didn't understand the issue.
So the issue is that if you go on vistasmalltalk.com,
yeah,
go on views, open the class browser. The class browser doesn't show anything.
No. Okay, I'm going to try it again. Just matter of fact, I'll open in Firefox. I'm going to try this in Firefox. Now, did they say what browser they're using?
Well, I just replicated the same problem with Chrome, right?
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to try to reload it. There could be a problem on the server. I don't know why, but there could be a problem on the server. Okay, so I'm going to just reload the whole thing. And we're going to go view. Okay, it's working for me.
Yeah, well,
I don't know what the answer to that is.
Okay,
I don't know. Like I haven't been demoing this to a bunch of people, so I mean I'm the only user quite often. I did demo it a couple weeks ago, and I think people were able to see it. So I don't know. It's been sort of an in-house project. It hasn't been something that I've been out showing to a lot of people. Yeah. So either because I'm using this, I'm running this on.
Actually, what they're going to do, they're going to go to views and click class browser, because you just get the transcript up to start with. But if you go to views, there's a menu there. You click class browser and up it comes. So I'm doing that in LibreWolf, no problem.
No problem. Okay, so if you do a refresh, you should be able to see everything and so on. Okay, it should work in the browsers. I'm not aware of any issues that there should be. It's running on a very small instance on Heroku. Like I'm running on their $5 a month issue. So if you have had 100 people, I could see that there would be a problem, but it should be okay for 10 or 20 people.
All right.
And anyway, the whole idea is that, this is designed for people that, want to learn programming. And when I go into Reddit, I think there are a couple million people in some of these subclasses in Reddit that people don't know anything about programming. They want to start programming. So that's aimed at them. It's also aimed at people who want to develop things like games and so on. That you can develop in Smalltalk a game, and immediately you can publish it immediately. I think that was the secret of Squeak, Scratch. And Scratch has a whole, they have a user forum and so on, and they have, I forget how many people they have in their forum. It's like thousands or tens of thousands. We can probably go there. There's about and so on. Explore, where do they have their community discussion forums? And they have posts, 187,000 making Scratch projects, 60,000 posts and so on. Like it is a 564,000 requests looking for something and so on. That's today, the latest post. All of these things, it's today or a couple of days ago, the latest post. It is hugely popular. Scratch is just enormously popular. And as I said, it used to be a Smalltalk project. So I'm aiming, if something is that popular, I'm trying to follow what Scratch has done, just making things easy for people to A, program and B, share with other people. And I think that's a secret to getting a lot of people interested in Smalltalk. It's just you put something up and you can share your classes and so on. but it has to be easy. There's no installation.
So just one question. If I understand it right, the Smalltalk actually runs on the server, right?
No, you haven't understood at all.
Okay.
You haven't understood.
Then
It
my
runs-
question is, how do I get access to JavaScript, to the DOM? Do I get access, or is there no way to?
No, you don't access the DOM at all. Oh, sorry. I'll repeat how the thing is built, okay?
Yep.
Matter of fact, I'll open.
You download an image, don't you? And you play with that. And when you want to save it, it saves on your server. Is that right?
That is correct, yeah. But the image, when I'm talking about an image here, I'm talking about an image which is saved in JSON. That's a JavaScript format. And it's only about a couple of hundred K. It's not like 10 megs or something. It's only 60K or 100K or 150K, depends upon how many classes you have. It's nothing like the size of Faro or the size
Okay,
of
but
Wii.
tell me how it is running in the browser. Is it running in JavaScript, and have you access through to the browser or not? Or is it just a shell?
It's 100%. It's 100% running in the browser.
Okay.
100%. There's no Smalltalk on the server.
No middleware in between, nothing.
No.
Okay.
Forget all that. It's 100% in the browser. The only thing on the server is a database. Okay. The only thing the server does is put up the index page.
JavaScript, please.
Everything 100% is JavaScript.
No, show me some JavaScript from Smalltalk. How do I access JavaScript from Smalltalk? Or the DOM, please, the DOM window object.
Oh, okay. Well, you want to get into the details? I'll get into the details.
just a quick
Well,
peek.
I'm bringing up IntelliJ, which is the Java development environment, and you can see
so
how.
not from this environment, not from Smalltalk.
Let's not get confused here.
Okay.
I write Java. Okay. I don't even write any JavaScript. I don't write any JavaScript. I don't write any CSS. I don't write any.
There's a transpiler who puts that.
There's a transpiler. Yeah. The what this outputs when I run it through, the compiler, the GWT compiler, it takes my Java and writes out a bunch of JavaScript, and I never look at the JavaScript because it's totally incomprehensible.
No
Okay,
problem.
so you're saying, for instance, I'll give you an example here. Let's take a look at something down here. Let's see, in the view, here are all the widget classes and so on. So how would this thing be? I'll take a particular widget. Let's say a text panel. Here's a text panel. So how do I do this? How do I get when you put up, this would be a text panel here. In the transcript, that would be a text panel. So how do I get the text? Well, from the Smalltalk, I execute a primitive. The primitive says get text. Okay.
So you have a middleware. It's called a virtual machine, so you cannot get to the JavaScript at all, right?
The virtual machine is written in JavaScript.
Yeah, okay, but on Windows you cannot get through the virtual machine to the machine code anyway, neither too. But that's
okay.
Well, I was looking for a Smalltalk which runs in a browser and plays with the browser. That's
what this does.
You if this is possible or not.
I think he's asking if there's live access to JavaScript through a bridge, like in Squeak.js.
Exactly. Yeah,
if you want that, I can put that in. Sure, no problem. But I mean, you would normally, if I put up a text window here, and I want to put a text in it, I would issue a Smalltalk command saying, set your text. I would issue it here, set your text to the string.
Right.
That calls the JavaScript right there.
Yeah, right.
Like this set text.
Yeah.
Calls the JavaScript and puts the text in. Now, what you want, I think, is you want me to have a class which directly you write JavaScript in your code. Is that correct?
Well, you have all these panels. I would like to have widgets and compose them myself and
you can. Well, why would you not be able to
program my own widgets? But I have to use Java then. Why can't I do that in Smalltalk? Well, okay, but no discussion. Anyway, it's a really great tool. I'm happy that you're doing it. So don't take it as a criticism. It's
okay. You can, like in here, I made a container panel. This is all Smalltalk. I made a container panel.
Right.
Like a view is your top level.
Right.
And there's a content widget and so on. And then within that, I've made a number of other widgets. For instance, just setting the background color and so on. A board panel, for instance, is something that, you know, the specialized a widget for games and so on. If I can add other classes here in Smalltalk and create new kinds of widgets, like you can make as many widgets as you want. You can, and you can customize them for size, for the background, for, you know, what action occurs when you click on something. You can do all that in Smalltalk. You don't have to get into Java or JavaScript. Like in this right here, I can make up new kinds of widgets, new kinds of lists. I could make a subclass to a list panel and make it do something special. So you don't have to get into JavaScript. I could make it so you could, but why would you want to do that?
It's just down to the level of granularity that you design the product at, isn't it? If you go low level enough with what you want, you can make anything you can make with JavaScript. But I suppose it's almost like the assembly language of your Smalltalk.
Understand. Yeah, I used to write assembly language on mainframes and stuff like that. You can do all kinds of stuff, but you can really screw it up too. It's really easy to screw up. When you get down to the assembly level, you can really make a mess. I can tell you that. Okay. So, okay, I'll give you an alternative. There's another version of this stuff, which is much more what you were talking about. And that's this thing here. This thing, which I said was running on the local machine, I'll tell you how that is run. This uses another, it doesn't use any Java. There's no Java at all here. This uses another project, which is called UKSTUG, which is originally, it's the, it's been around since about 2005, 2006. It's a very popular project as well. And this one creates, this is written in JavaScript and the compiler is written in JavaScript. This is an npm, sorry. You do npm install UKSTUG, and I forget the exact. I think that's all you have to say. You might be UKSTUG.org or something, and it will install your UKSTUG compiler. UKSTUG is a compiler written in JavaScript, and it produces JavaScript, and all of the code is JavaScript. So if you want to have a widget set which is done 100% in Java, or sorry, JavaScript, and you want to write your own widgets, well, UKSTUG, and this is what. This is another version of Smalltalk, which the user interface is written in UKSTUG, and the compiler on this one is written in Ruby. Now I can use the Java compiler or the Java generated compiler with this, or I can use my Java generated widgets with the Ruby compiler. I can mix and match. You know, they can be. The reason I went to UKSTUG is because it has a very good mobile interface. Okay, so if I understand you right, it's just a matter of implementing access to JavaScript. So there's nothing which specifically hinders it to access it. So you could add it without much problem. Okay, in the Java version, there's a thing called a JS interrupt, which is Java to JavaScript interrupt. So if I wrote a particular widget, say game widget or something, I'll give you an example. Physics engine. You know, there are lots of open source physics engines. There's what is it? OpenGL. You know, you have 3D, all kinds of graphic presentation things written in JavaScript. So if I wanted to add that into my Java thing, I just have to add at the code level. Sorry, in the Java code here, I would, I guess you're not seeing that, you know, because I'm not used to this. How do I change that? See if I can get you to see that. Anyway, I'm not going to play with it because you can take any JavaScript that you want. Okay, you write your own JavaScript, or you take a library, say for a physics engine or for a game engine or whatever. And you add about 2 lines of code in the Java saying, here's my Java interface. So now it becomes a Java class. And then, you know, you have to, in the Java, you'd have to write the primitives for Java so I can call it from Smalltalk. But basically, you're talking about 50 lines of code, you know, to implement any JavaScript, you know, whatever you want into this thing.
Yeah.
Of course, it has to fit within, it has to follow the same rules, say for resizing and all sorts of things. It has to fit into these windows. Now, if you want to get fancy, you can use an iframe. So you can take, say you had a 3D rendering engine or something in JavaScript, and you couldn't, for some reason, make it compatible with the JavaScript here. Well, you just put it in an iframe.
Okay, I think I understand the structure.
Yeah. So you can do it. You can do anything you want. You can take any JavaScript, whatever,
Yeah.
put it in there.
One more completely unrelated question.
Yeah.
It's about mobiles. I was thinking a lot about how would I program Smalltalk on a mobile? So
Yeah.
how would I do a debugger or a browser or an inspector? How can
Okay,
you do that?
the hard part there is,
that.
okay, the hard part there, because as I said, you know, this thing is written, it's written so that it runs from a scheduler. Now, the scheduler works that you have your VM, and your VM has a limit of the number of instructions that it can run. I think I've sent it to 25 or 50 or something like that. So it runs 50 bytecodes, and then it releases and goes back to the scheduler. The scheduler then says, is there anything else that's scheduled that's active? So I have active processes, and I have sleeping processes, and I have unscheduled processes. Unscheduled processes means I told them to stop, but I haven't told them how to restart. A sleeping process, it's not running, but it knows when it's supposed to restart. And everything else is an active process, and they go by priority number. So in the case, say, okay, so you're running in the debugger, for instance, is you stop the code and you open up another virtual machine, another interpreter, which then is, you know, runs your interface, and the first virtual machine is stopped, so I can look at you know, what state are you in, you know, what is your, are you in a context, what's your context, what's the calling context, all that kind of stuff. So the mechanisms are built in. Mechanisms are there. The problem with a mobile device is it's so small that it's very hard to see what you're doing. I mean, I have big fingers, you know, these little tiny phones, and I have big fingers. It's a real pain.
Yeah.
It can be done, but whether it can be done practically, or, you know, you have to think about the interface. That's the hard part.
It's difficult, I think. Yep.
Yeah, but the code is there. I mean, the code you can. And when I load it into a mobile device, like I have a 10-year-old Samsung Galaxy, you know, so it's so old that it's the version of Android that they don't update anymore. So, and if it runs in that, it probably runs in anything. My son has, you know, the latest iPhone, it runs fine in that. Yeah, the problem on mobile devices is they're small. So it's not a question of, you know, do you have the resources or can you run it? The question is, it's so small, how do you use it?
The size factor. You have a
Yeah,
big class library and a very small window. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think UKSTUG. Let's see if I'll just do a search. Again, I figured. Okay, what I'm going to do. Okay, if you're seeing this right now, okay, I'm going to just do a UKSTUG. I think this is the way to do it. Mobile. So I think they have some demos of their mobile. Okay, UKSTUG showcase for mobile app. Mobile showcase. Okay, I think there's an online version of the mobile. Okay, so here's a mobile. Are you seeing this?
Yeah.
Okay, so you see basic widgets and stuff like that. So you have buttons, labels, and so on. You have themings. You can do the different themings, flat themes, and indigo theme, and so on. And you can scale it. Like I can scale things up. That didn't seem to do anything. Or apply, I guess I have to click there. Yeah, so there I can make, if people have a hard time reading it, you can scale it up and down. So that's why I'm developing another version with the UKSTUG interface, because on the mobile, they've thought a lot of these things through.
Right.
On the thing with the Java, as I said, I had to write a lot of the, like the windowing system, I had to write my own in Java. But when you get into mobile, it's all this styling stuff about selecting a theme and making things that, with you, when you scan it with your fingers, so the thing rolls up and so on. But UKSTUG, they've gone through all of this stuff. So I can open a top drawer, for instance, and it comes up like that. I can open a side drawer, a left drawer, for instance, it comes out. So they've worked through the interface for mobile. And that's why I'm building a version of Vista Smalltalk using the UKSTUG interface, is because most of the people, when I go online and Reddit or whatever and say, you know, do you want to try it out? Everybody says, well, you know, I've got a mobile device. It looks terrible. So I said, okay, I'll build a mobile version too. So you have like three levels. Three levels. At the mobile level, you're going to have something like this, which is functional. It's easy to use because you with your fingers, but it's not, you can't open windows and all that kind of stuff. Then you have the version that runs in the browser, which yes, it's Smalltalk and it has a class browser and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't have all the refactoring tools and so on, like you showed in there, or was just shown in Quiz. Like I could, but there's no point in me going through, you know, rebuilding all that kind of stuff in this version of Smalltalk. What I was doing in the past month was saying, you know, I'll do all the heavy duty stuff in either Pharo or Quiz, and then I'll export my classes that I need into a chunk format, and then I'll run it through my tools and create a format for my Smalltalk. And then you can run that version in your browser. Oh, and in your browser, you can also run on your mobile device. So, you know, if the heavy duty stuff stays in place, then it's what we are using now, what we used to, or if you want to use VisualWorks or even Visual Age or whatever, as long as you can export it into a chunk format, you're not using any funny classes that I don't support. You can do all your refactoring and so on in a higher level Smalltalk, export it to this version that runs in the browser. You can do some further refinement in the browser, and you know, you develop that would be where you would develop the mobile version, or the mobile version of your application. You develop it in the browser, because then it gives you right away feedback for running it on your mobile phone and so on. Anyway, it's a different approach to developing Smalltalk, rather than building everything in C like it's been done from the beginning. Actually, the first version of Smalltalk didn't even use C. They used something much more primitive than C.
So one more unrelated question. So do you have all the ecosystem in place for people to play in it and not lose their own code or something?
Not yet. Okay. As I think I showed you before that when we were looking at the Java, or I guess you didn't see it. Now that I know how to do this, I'll forget it. I'm not going to play with that. How to show it in your screen. Yeah. Originally, when I built this, I was looking at using Google's what do they call it? Firebase, which is a database which is used for mobile devices. So you can scale it up to millions of users. It doesn't cost that much, and so on. So I thought that was neat. But then I realized that, you know, when you were supporting people online, and they're each saving their own version of an image and so on, then somebody says, you know, I just had this new game or something, or this new class I want to share with all my other friends and so on. So I said, well, how do I do that? Like, you know, take it out of your code, out of your image, and share this across with a bunch of other people's images, or put it in a format that they can import. I might have to do some refactoring and all that kind of stuff. And then I realized I don't have a way to do that. This is hard to do on a NoSQL database. On an SQL database, or, you know, with especially when I'm running Ruby on Rails and so on, I can have little tags in everybody's profile that says, you know, my version is this, and we can have different versions of the image, so that when I can refactor it so that various people can now use it, the refactoring tools, to rewrite the image for each kind of person that's using it. And also, you know, eliminate code that's not being used anymore, all that kind of good stuff. So I decided to go from the NoSQL database to the SQL database, which I have to pay for, but it's like $5 a month at this level. So I'm not too worried about it at the moment. But if it scales up, you know, I'm going to get some cost, and I know that. But anyway, yeah. So the answer to your question is, yes, you can do refactoring, and yes, you can support a whole bunch of things. That would be where people have their own code and they play with it. You know, Sammy saves a bunch of code and he says, you know, I developed this game, but you know, 2 versions back, and I need to upgrade something to this, and I can run it through my tools and say, yeah, I'm going to refactor this for the latest version. And also different languages, because I think there's something like, I forget how many mobile devices are in use now. It's something like 5 billion or something. You know, mobile devices are used all over the world. And, you know, I write things in English, but, you know, places, you know, in India or, you know, Asia or whatever, or South America, anywhere, people would probably prefer to have it, you know, in some language more familiar. And you know, that again, that requires refactoring. Like I've supported multi-language, how should I say, applications before, and you have to have all of these tables set up. You know, this thing means so and so in such a language, and then you go through your application and replace. You don't hard code anything. Yeah, everything is a reference to some indicator, which then gets replaced by another language or a language of choice.